Good morning, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, this last day of February, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hopper.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Rachel.
Here.
Rupert.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Arndt.
Here.
Speedo.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item on the agenda this morning is a discussion item on the Aquatic Center feasibility study update. And we have the Aquatic Center with us this morning, and Caroline Gustafson is going to speak to us. Thank you, Caroline, for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for hearing us this morning. As you guys all know, this Aquatics Committee started in 2016 under the direction of the City Council to work with USA Aquatics to do a feasibility study. All that information was presented to you at a previous City Council meeting. The highlights of it include the survey that was filled out by over 1,500 people, and 78% of them felt it was very important to expand recreational aquatic opportunities in Fergus Falls. So we're looking at a majority of the survey respondents wanting this aquatics facility. From there, a site study was done on 12 different sites in Fergus Falls. And the top two were the Kirkbride Park and the levee. Based on what we know about the levee, we thought that the Kirkbride Park was going to be the best location for this, for a few different reasons that are highlighted in your packet here. The overall concept was a $6.38 million aquatic facility with two different bodies of water, and the reason for that being if there was an accident in one of the pools, the pool would still be open and available to the public. From there, the City Council did accept our feasibility study. So now what we're looking for is we would like the City Council to approve the project as presented in the scope and general cost. And what we're asking for is just the opportunity to move forward on the project. If you guys are looking at a different pool structure or something like that, that's not set in stone by any means. What we're looking for is the opportunity to further look into the financials of how much it'll cost, what kind of fundraising we can do, things of that nature. We were approached by Mark Maston and the school, and we would like to keep that communication open with them, just in case something does come up in partnership for them. And we would also like a chance to look at the soils at the Kirkbride Park, which would also give us a better idea of how much this pool would cost and what kind of other financials need to go into making that area the best it can possibly be. From there, we would, once we get a financial feasibility done, we would like to look into our funding from our outside sources and a possible local option sales tax mixed in with some of the other community projects that are currently going on or need to be going on. And then we can establish a fundraising plan. So that is what we're asking for, is just the opportunity to move forward, nail down some of the financials, look into some of the fundraising, and do a little bit of soil testing so we can make sure everything we have is in order. We're not asking you to authorize this project and say it's a go. We're asking for the opportunity to move forward.
Thank you, Caroline. And there's $5,000 remaining in the original grant to cover the cost of what you're asking us.
Correct,
to do.
yep.
Is that correct? Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the committee for Caroline?
I think this raises obviously a valid point about kind of what we talked a little bit about in the last council meeting, was that I think we need to look at the bigger picture of how we're going to fund these projects. I think each council member has there's a champion for a certain project, and there's community support that goes around varied projects, whether that's Lake Alice, whether it's trails, whether it's the dairy, whether it's the aquatic center. There's a number of these projects, and I think I asked obviously to be put on the agenda for the next council meeting. That collectively these projects are in the region of $20 to $30 million, depending on which ones we do, and I think we need to kind of address that at a council meeting so we're all on the same page. We all know how we're going to fund these things, and then reflecting a little bit on what the mayor of St. Cloud said, that you know, these projects in St. Cloud, they're doing basically on a 50-50 match. So, you know, if there's community support and fundraising and kind of grants that can be brought to a project, you know, then, you know, the city looks to do 50%, and then, you know, that group looks to do 50%, whether it comes in the form of grants, you know, from the state, or whether it comes from, you know, pure fundraising. And I think we need to address that so that we're all on the same page, and then we can move forward rather than tackling these on a one-off basis. So I think that would be my comment back. I think, yeah, I mean, looking to establish a PI number shouldn't be theoretically an issue to move forward, so that we get more precise information about what the project's going to cost. And then, as you say, we can charge people to get out there and get it done.
So I think I think, Anthony, we've had this discussion as, would believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what they're asking for wouldn't get in the way of what you're asking for. You know, they can go forward and then at some point bring them back together and have that larger discussion about how we're actually going to get these
Yeah,
things
but I
done.
think we have to do that sooner rather than later. You know,
Sure.
whether it's an amphitheater downtown, you know, because if we're not on the same page about how we're going to fund these things, we're never going to move forward.
Sure.
Your Honor?
Good point, yes.
Anthony, are you offering that as a motion?
I kind of, yes.
I'll second it.
So let me make sure the motion is to bring it to the council as a bigger discussion,
Correct.
including the
Aquatic Center.
moving it forward as part of
Yeah.
having a larger discussion.
Okay. And then I think at the council meeting, we can offer then a motion to establish a PI number
Right.
for the Aquatic Center to move forward.
Any further questions of the committee?
Can I just
Bridget,
ask a
yes, of
question?
course, Bridget.
I just want to clarify, I just want to clarify how that specifically relates to this project. 'Cause our project scope is the pool, and we understand that there's other projects, and we are recommending that we look at the option to bundle this with other community projects, but my concern is that's stalling a project, or that's not, that's getting bigger than what we're
I
presenting
don't
and
see
asking
it
for.
stalling the project.
Okay.
I think, you know, I think if we can establish how we're going to fund projects, because, you know, if you look at the lists of projects, you know, potentially it's, depending on how much you want to allocate for varied things, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's kind of trails, whether it's, you know, it's potentially $30 million. So, you know, if we say, right, well, the city is going to look to bond or, you know, sales tax, you know, 50% of that, and then you've identified individual projects within that, then, you know, each project then can manage its own at that point. And we can then establish, I think on Monday evening, we can establish a PI number in order that you can do your next phase of testing.
Sure, yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, everyone clear on the motion?
Yep.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Please same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Caroline. Item number 2 is a College Way Street Improvement Project. Brian Uvaro.
Thank you. Good morning. If you recall, last fall, I gave you an update in regards to College Way Mill and Overlay Project. Enclosed, we took some street corners along this corridor from Kennedy to Tower Road, and the enclosed map is what was presented last fall. It indicates that we have varying street sections throughout this corridor. So we essentially went back to the drawing table, and we're looking to amend what was initially proposed as a mill and overlay to consider this project a mill and overlay in conjunction with improving some of these street base deficiencies due to these varying street section widths and everything. So Interstate Engineering has amended their professional services proposal to, and we're requesting authorization to accept this proposal for design in the amount of $32,500. And this is not only a design I requested them to include additional services for coordination with adjacent businesses along this project as it moves forward. So at this time, I'm requesting this council accept that.
So move.
Thank you, Rod. Bring that to the council. Thank you, Tom. Any further questions from council? Consent agenda.
Sean?
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. We're not going to discuss item 3 today. Item number 4.
Item 3 is RTO photography.
I'm sorry, I have a wrong agenda.
He's looking at the old agenda. We have an item 3.
So we are going to discuss item number 3. Which is, that's my item 4. RTC photography request, Mr. R.C. Drews.
Morning, Mayor, members of the council. It is an unusual circumstance to find myself participating in this capacity, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I am here, firstly, in an attempt to be informative but efficient. Here to request permission on behalf of Fergus Falls Daily Journal for photography inside the Kirkbride structure for the purpose of a special edition of the Daily Journal to be released within the next, month or so. We're shooting for somewhere around the end of March, beginning of April is the tentative deadline. So I can provide just a brief background on this request to help inform the council decision. Firstly, the project is conceived, well, it started out as a proposal by myself to the publisher and the editor of the newspaper with the intent to try to capture this moment that we're living in, this present. It seems that the decision with the RTC and the conversation therein is reached sort of a critical mass. It appears that within the next year or so we're likely to have resolution to a decision that has occupied debate in this community for over 10 years. And so it was my intention at that time that maybe we can try to capture what the mood is in this community now so that those in the future will have an understanding of what led to whichever decision that we choose, whichever that might be. So the intention is to put out an objective piece that is informative to the community. It is not intending to promote any agenda, whether preservation or deconstruction, but just to inform as to what has taken place so far. And again, to capture the moment, and I believe that the Daily Journal is in a unique position to do that as the local newspaper. So in brief, the project is a cover-to-cover special edition, likely to be released on a Saturday, though all of this is subject to some change and review. Of course, I speak on behalf of the Daily Journal, but ultimately the decisions will be made by their management team, their editor, their publisher. Overall, it will include 5 articles, 2 editorials, and 2 photo packages. Again, briefly, 2 of the articles will be a review of the process for the last 10 years, with one focusing on the costs that have been incurred so far, the costs that would likely be incurred either if the building was maintained as it is, or if the building if deconstruction was completed as has been proposed. And then another article looking at some of the proposals that have been heard by the city over the last 10 years, just trying to inform people of what has been reviewed by the city council so far, what options have come forward, what has been considered, and maybe looking to some extent at why those didn't go any further than what they did. And then we'll have 2 articles dealing with the history of the structure, one dealing with the overall structure, why was it built here, and what happened that the city came to possess it about a decade ago. And then another looking at the tower itself. In the event that should be the last building standing on that grounds, then what is the significance of that building and what would it mean for the future if that was what remains? Finally, one other article will be an opportunity for those that are looking for preservation of the structure to give their side of their stance anyways, to look at what they feel could still be done and what they'd like to see from community involvement or maybe from the city council, but looking at legitimate plans and not an opportunity for anecdotal commentary, but actual structured plans for this is what they propose could still be done to save the structure. And then in addition, there was proposed to be 2 editorial pieces. That is subject to some conversation that may be modified. We're still looking into what the best way to handle that is. Originally, the intent was to have an editorial by somebody representing the city's current proposal for deconstruction to the legislature, and somebody who would be more interested in preservation of the structure. But we've also had some suggestions to maybe open that up to council members to present their position as to why they voted in favor of the deconstruction plan as representatives of the city. That will have to be decided at a later time by the staff at the Journal. And then finally, the project is going to include 2 photo packages, and that's why I'm here today. Temporarily, I'm calling it Kirkbride, the Broken and the Beautiful. One of those projects will attempt to highlight the majesty of the structure, everything from the exterior architecture to some of the interior features, such as the grand staircase and some of the design elements, as well as what is deteriorating. It'll be an attempt to capture maybe, for example, the flooding in the tunnels, the mold on the walls, the things that lead us to the conclusion that this building will be costly to save, and the things that would help highlight that to those that haven't had access to that building for a couple of years now. Let me see here. For the purpose of both those projects, we're requesting access to the interior of the building so that we can hopefully objectively capture what is inside there, rather than relying on photographs that have been taken over the years that may have been taken with some intent behind them one way or the other. And we understand that there will likely be reasonable conditions placed on anyone allowed access to that building. Of course, we're happy to comply with whatever is reasonably asked. In conclusion, I think that this is a momentous time for the community, one way or the other, whichever decision that we reach. And the Journal is hoping to produce a valuable artifact that can be sort of a memento for the future, something that 50 years from now we can look back on and get some understanding of where we were at today. I want to reiterate that this project is not meant to reflect any particular stance on the RTC. It is not intended to push any agenda. It is merely meant to be informative and as an effort of preserving this moment. And I want to thank city staff and members of elected officials that have worked with us already as we've begun this project. We've had a lot of help and support in the last couple of days from staff at City Hall, and we really appreciate that. We look forward to that going forward. So with that said, I want to formally request on behalf of the Daily Journal permission for temporary access to the Kirkbride structures by representatives of the newspaper for the purpose of photographing the interior, and also requesting that matter be voted on and considered at the March 5th meeting of the City Council. So I thank you all for your time and consideration, and if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions for RC Tom?
Would we be able to get a copy of the proposal? I didn't see that we had one in our.
Yes, my apologies. I did send it to Lynn last night, but it was well after close at City Hall. So there is a copy that's been emailed, and of course that could gladly be distributed to.
Yeah, I would just like to see it, everything in writing, detailed, you know, with what the plans are, and because yeah, it's a pretty politically sensitive subject, and we want to be
Yes.
very careful to avoid any kind of a slant.
Yep,
Fair enough.
absolutely.
Fair enough. Other questions, comments? Scott?
I just think the timing is wrong. I think we should wait till after the legislators are done. The council voted 8-0 to go ahead with this project to demo if the money's there. So I just think that throwing this in the mix right now is gonna throw us, you know, put stuff out there that we're hesitant on doing this, you know, and we aren't. We're full bore ahead. We have a reason to do it. If you do it in June, it's not gonna make any difference. It's still gonna be the same piece you want to save for 50 years, like you said. So I'm against right now, but I could see it in June. I have no problem with it.
Other questions, comments? I think we can all agree that we'll bring this to the council
Oh,
Monday
well,
night for
yes.
discussion and to
Do you
vote
have
on.
any thoughts on
that, right?
Scott's point? Excuse me. Sorry.
Sure, thanks, sir. Well, to comment to that, of course, the project itself, it's maybe worth noting, will be, I try to say this gingerly, but at the discretion of the Daily Journal when it's published. We're not asking the council's consent for the piece itself, but merely for this portion of it to work with the city for access to the building. We feel, or I should say that, maybe I'll just speak for myself. I feel that right now that this issue has reached sort of a fever pitch. We have a decision from the council within the last month or so here to move forward with this legislative ask of $8.9 million. And of course, we've had a response from those that are concerned about preserving the structure. And that conversation seems to be in an excited state, and naturally, as a member of the news media, we want to make sure that we're there when the subject is timely and in public conversation rather than after it has passed. And to that end, of course, there are a lot of discussions being had in town and online on the Facebooks, as the kids say. And we want to make sure that we do whatever we can to inform that discussion. I think there is a lot of information that is maybe being misconstrued, misunderstood, that if some of those numbers, facts, and figures were represented to the public, it might help better inform those discussions, and that's why we feel that the current time is timely, even though it is before the end of the legislative session. But our intent is not anything that would impact the legislative ask, and of course, that's a conversation that we have had with City Hall as well prior to this meeting. All I can say is that we'll do our best to ensure that it is an objective piece and not pushing an agenda.
And, you know, you can do your piece, I haven't, you know, we can't stop you from doing that, but I just don't, we haven't let anybody else in the building for over a year and a half, and I just think we should hold to that and move on with it, but, yeah, we can't, I'm not saying I want to stop your article, absolutely not, it's just the pictures, I just don't want nobody in there.
Sure.
We stopped everybody else before because of the health reasons and different things, so that's what I just want to wait till afterwards, and if the mold is gone by then, hopefully, maybe you can get in it, but not until then, so. That's.
Thanks, Scott. Jim?
It bothers me that it may open the door for others wanting to come in, and if we let one, we have to let them all, you know, and we have not done that in the past, so. That part of it bothers me, is that if we let somebody in, then gung-ho, the requests are gonna come. So that,
Maybe we can fend that off. That's pretty easy.
that's my stand on it anyway.
Rod?
We've had a conversation, Ryan, and I'm going to just publicly summarize that so that it's clear how each of us might think on this issue. And I think in the interest of transparency and reporting, that we should have, you know, as much factual information as we can for whether the legislators or the citizens. And you know that when you ask my opinion, I'm going to summarize. You can tell me if it's right or wrong, but I believe I told you that I'm in favor of factual reporting and full disclosure, as long as it represents also the views of the citizenry of Fergus Falls, who are the ultimate ones who own this building and will support it going forward in the future. So many of the activists and outside lobbyists who are writing articles and saying they represent the citizens of Fergus may or may not be representing the citizenry. The point is that we have to hear from the citizens. And the best way to do that, I think, one of the ways is that your article could, as I stated to you, if we had enough of each ward represented in writing of what they know of their citizens and writing why they voted in favor of trying to move forward, that would balance what I think is an misinformation and I would say overweighted publicity in a certain arena right now about what's really happened and what we have tried to do, and many of us tried to support. So I guess I'm saying I support this going forward, but I made the qualifier, and if you remember that I believe that every ward should be able to write an article, every representative, because people elected us to represent them, and this is owned by the city. And the paper, I believe, has that kind of a certain, I would say, responsibility to the citizens, those who support it. You know, we advertise in it, we live here, that we truly represent as best we can the views of the elected officials, because that too would be looked back on. It isn't just a big yes or no, there's lots of things. So if we could do that, I'm supportive. But if we can't do that, if your editors don't want to do that, let each ward have a representative article in there. You know, why did we vote this way? Or whatever. Then I'm not in favor of it, and I still stand by that. Does that characterize what we discussed?
Yes, sir, I believe that's accurate.
Okay.
And just my response to that, we have had that conversation in meetings of the Daily Journal, and there's interest in a piece like that, but one of the biggest challenges is logistically. Of course, as a physical paper, we have a certain amount of available space, and usually that comes down to word count. So trying to work with 8 different council members to ensure that we get the right resulting word count to fit in the page space that we have available is one of the greater challenges in doing that in a timely fashion versus assigning a single individual or a single writer of staff to handle that. But it's something that's being discussed. Unfortunately, I don't have the authority to state one way or the other which way that editorial section will be handled. But I know that is a conversation that we've had, and that there's an interest, depending on what the interest would be from council members, to participate in a feature like that.
Thank you, Rod. So to the specific request on the photography, you mentioned there's the proposal that Tom wanted to see is, we'll be getting that today, or assuming that RC sent it to Lynn.
Yes, yes, sir.
Excellent, okay. So could we agree that we'll take a look at that proposal, bring this to the council for a full discussion and a vote on Monday night? Is that,
Absolutely.
okay? So will someone make that motion?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Brent. Any further discussion or questions for RC? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, RC.
Thank you all.
Last item on the agenda is an update on the snow and ice removal. Hopefully, this will be the last update on the snow and ice removal.
Yeah, really. Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, just informational update on the snow removal, ice removal on public sidewalks. That is the responsibility of private landowners. This is typically how it plays out. We get a complaint from somebody, or a staff person will see an issue and initiate a complaint. We send a staff person then out to verify the complaint. A letter is sent then to the owner of record, which our code states we have to send it to the owner, and the owner is from the county owner information that is tied into our GIS program. 2 or 3 days later, after that letter is sent out, we send a staff member to go check it again to see if the landowner has complied and removed the snow or ice. If that's not done, then we send a contractor. Contractor then has 2 days to get there and do the work. To date, from January 1, we've sent out 107 letters. We have a pretty good success rate with compliance, but we have had to send the contractor out to a number of places to do the work. And what's required of him, of the contractor, is to clear the snow and the ice down to the pavement, full width of the sidewalk. So sometimes that takes 2 or 3 trips. So some of the bills that have gone out are $200+. So we're getting some feedback on some of those bills. The contractor was procured by a request for quotes that we sent out specific letters, invitations to submit a quote to 6 different known contractors in town. And then we put an ad in the Daily Journal also for any contractors that we didn't know of. We accepted the quote from Knutson Lawn Service, and he has done a great job for us. He's very thorough, and we have him submit his invoice to us. We direct bill the property owner then his time plus an administrative fee for the staff time that's involved in checking out the complaint, verifying it once again, the letter time, the postage, and on top of the $40 administrative fee and his time, there's taxes, state and local, that is also tacked on there. So that's basically our process. Like I said, the bills that have gone out, they're high, and people are having some heartburn over them. But in the past, city staff has done this work, and it's not unlike the charges that we've sent out in the past. We've had many charges sent out in years past that are $200+, but I don't know if it's the way this winter has gone, where we've just had little snows here and there early on, and people just thought, well, it's not enough snow to shovel, and we get another little snow, and oh, that's not enough to shovel, and it just piled up, and then it turned to ice, and then the complaints started coming in. So it is a higher number of letters that have gone out this year than we have sent out in previous years, even though it's been a fairly mild winter up until last week.
Any questions for Guy, Rod?
Yeah, Len, I had a homeowner talk to me, not about charges, but about the policy. And there was a house on Elcott, which is just east of the old Elcott Grocery. So it'd be that first block after you turn off of Union going west. It's right on the corner almost. And I was over there last year. The lawn was a problem, and there's 1 or 2 houses there that aren't being taken care of very well. The homeowner said that they had contacted the city last year and said they weren't shoveling snow and stuff, and I think you had gone out, something had happened. And then but this year he's been doing it. Maybe, I don't know if he feels like awkward about saying it, but I was bringing it up because that it seems like that the policy that you said was a 2-day or 3-day wait? Is it between, like if you get the complaint, and then is there a 2 to 3 day, you send out a notice to the owner and it takes 2 or 3 days to act? Is that how it is?
We get the complaint and we try to get somebody out to verify it right away.
Yeah.
And then the letter will go out as soon as possible. And then it's 2 to 3 days after the letter is sent that we recheck it.
Okay, so is there a liability the city has on sidewalks? Because they were saying like people use that a lot there and kids wait there, they bus, you know, different things happen there and they blow it because they're afraid of, you know, someone's gonna fall or something.
Liability, I believe, would be on the private property owner. Because by code, they're responsible to take care of the sidewalk that abuts their private property.
Okay,
So I think it's their liability, but it's our duty to respond to the complaint. And
and those have to be
doing so-
made every year, like if someone isn't doing it each year, the other owners around would have to complain each year to be on the radar that year. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it is.
Because he was thinking he was already on the radar, and I said, I don't know how that works, so.
No, we would have to be alerted to it.
Yeah.
We don't typically just go out and look for them. I mean, like I said, staff will initiate a complaint if we see something that's really obvious, but we don't comb the city and look for it. So,
Right.
yeah, nothing's flagged year to year.
Right, okay, thanks.
Speaking of being on the radar, I can verify the process works because the mayor's house did get a call from City Hall. But it was taken care of before the contractor was sent out.
Just do one shovel per kid, it'd be done in about 30 seconds.
Any other questions
It
of
was
Guy?
a fun call to make.
There is a solution, Your Honor, and that is we could just establish cross-country ski trails in front of all the houses around Fergus, and everyone skis, and then we don't have to shovel.
I would just like to add that I think it's, you know, it's unfortunate that people don't clear the sidewalk, and I think, as you say, this has been a peculiar winter, which I think has added to some of that. But ultimately, you know, people understand that the only way that you're going to get kind of obviously a response is when they get the bill for $200 through the mail, and it's like react, you know, clear your snow in a timely fashion, because slips, trips, and falls are, you know, a high number of injuries through the winter time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it is, as you say, the homeowner's responsibility, and we have to wait for the U.S. mail to get there. So I don't know how we can make the system more efficient.
Yeah, with the code requirement of it being removed within 24 hours after the precipitation stops, by the time we get the complaint, it's well beyond that 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then it's another 2 or 3 days to send the contractor, then he has 2 days. So they're getting a lot of leeway.
And it's packed by then, so it's hard to clear too.
Yep.
You know, I just got a question, Guy. I mean, on the, do we track on which properties we're getting complaints on, and if it's a reoccurring thing, could we send out a thing at the beginning of the snow year to remind them? I mean, or is this varying properties, or is it always the same
We
properties?
did something kind of like that with the properties that we knew weren't being maintained in the summer, that we had sent the contractor to. We did send letters to them, just alerting them to the fact that they're required to do the sidewalk also. So, but the year to year, the sidewalk issue, we can try to track that, but it's,
I'm just wondering if, you know, people forget, but then when we get in that season, if we have problem properties where we're constantly having to send letters, maybe.
we do have it in the code where if we've sent a letter one time in the season, we don't have to resend the letter again that season. We can just, if it's not done, we send the contractor, you know, without notice.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, as much as that's a nice idea, I don't think that's the city's responsibility. I mean, you know, people know to clear their sidewalk, they know to mow their grass. I think if anything, we should look at an escalating fee that every time, you know, if you have to go out there twice, you double the bill. If you have to go out there 3 times, you triple the bill. So.
Just give us the word.
Yeah, we can look at that. It is an election year.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, Guy. Anything else to come before the committee? All right, we're adjourned.
There's the election.
Yeah, we don't want that.